a lot of people have been asking me questions concerning buying property in the Gambia. I am not a lawyer, let me make that clear, but I'm familiar with the process. I know many people who have bought land or houses. Some have followed the right procedures and are happy, while some have gone ahead without a lawyer and have lived to regret it until this day. I will provide you with some important insights or nuggets of what you need to do before you part with your hard-earned cash. I will strongly advise you to hire a reputable lawyer from the beginning to the end. He or she will provide you with more in-depth information about what you need to do to achieve a successful purchase and have a pleasant buying experience. Watch the following video clip as the Permanent Secretary from the Ministry of Land and Local Government, Mr. SANYANG, speaks about the processes of buying land in the Gambia. He emphasizes the common problems associated with buying and why disputes come about. He also talks about the responsibilities of the individual and the actions that they need to take before parting with their money.
Land administration, first of all, if we want to talk about land, we have to talk about ownership. If we want to define land in terms of conflict, you have to first define what is ownership. Ownership comes in which form? Ownership comes in terms of you having land as you bought it from a rightful owner. You own land by inheriting land from the rightful owner. You can own land by gift, if it is a gift from a rightful owner. You can own land by an allocation from the state. These are the forms of ownership. If people respect this ownership format, there wouldn't be an issue or problem in terms of land issues. It's only when a denial is made in terms of how the land is transferred from one person to another, under who is given land ownership, then there become a problem. This is what we have to address in trying to sort out the land administration. And the government, since the First Republic, in the Commons, they have what we call Provincial Act, Land Act, under the State Land Act that we administer. The State Land Act initially was between Banjul and Combo St. Mary's. And in 1994, there is a declaration of Combo South, Combo North, and Combo Central as part of the state land area. This has to be understood by the people. You have a right on these properties, but you have a user right. But then the state owns the right on the property. So this has to be understood, and then people have to understand that the state has a role and responsibility. Technically, the entire country is a state land, because the minister has the right at the provincial land to declare anywhere for public use. So when people understand this, and when people are sensitized to understand this, then that will limit, as you said, the conflict over land.
So is this a case where, for example, farmers, government will ask them to use a particular land, for example, during the rainy season? Is it common for them to mistake this for permanent ownership?
Yes, that is likely happening in a lot of areas where reserve lands people are allowed to farm on it, and eventually they will trade on it. And as I said earlier, this ownership in terms of land has to be, you have to understand that you can have a right of that land, but it's not a right to transfer. It's not transferable. Your right is not transferable. So my father can be farming on somebody's father's land, but it's not a gift, it is borrowed. That right cannot be transferred. I can be there for centuries, but it's not transferable to my offspring. People have to understand that, and they have to know that you have right to use, but you don't have right to transfer. So sometimes people mistake it. My father has been here since I was not born, farming on this land, so it's ours. You have to know the premises of which your father owned that land. Why has it become your father's land? How have your father been farming on that land? What was the reason? Then you will be able to understand whether that right can be transferred to you or that right is unable to be transferred to you.
The issue of transferring rights is not only limited between family members, like people saying this land was being used by my father and now it belongs to me. But we have seen constantly people selling lands and selling one plot to 4 different individuals at the same time. Does this trickle down to the alcalos, or does the ministry have a say in this?
I think I will to an extent. There are a lot of players in land sale. But the first person to blame is the person who wants to buy land. You know there are offices responsible for your clarification to clear to you that this land, particular land, is either within a reserve or is clear or is not clear. But then people will do their transaction until they money change hands. At the end of the transaction, they will involve government. They will go to look for the papers. You tell them this is impossible. That time the money is gone already. So I think the people buying land, they have offices responsible. I will not say there is 100% perfection in terms of that administration at that level, but then we have to start. People who want to buy land, you have your hard-earned money you want to spend on land. Why can't you go and verify from the authorities whether this land itself, you want to trade in, is safe, or is a reserve, government has reserved it for a purpose, or is in dispute, or is even going to court. All these things are happening. We are seeing it. So in some cases, sometimes the way people perceive that, for example, land sold by somebody and then having 2 or 3 ownership, sometimes within the same family. I can sell the land. I said my brother doesn't take permission from me. I will also go and sell it. So, those kind of situations happen. But the bottom line is, those people who want to buy land, you have got your money, you have your right, you have your power. Confront the right office to advise you. Don't wait until the transaction is done and then you want to fall back and then say, I want to get my paper. Now you are not interested in the location or the authenticity of the location. Now you are interested in getting a paper of that property. And that will be difficult if the property is within a place where it cannot get the paper you want to get. You are either going to get the wrong paper, or you get a false paper, or you can corrupt some officers to give you papers which might not stand. You will get the money, you will get the paper, but that paper might not be able to stand.
And in case some of those officers are corrupted and this is realized, what action does the ministry take?
There are legal actions. You can even take the person as an individual, you can take the person to court. If the ministry knows this person is implicated, we take the public service rule clearly stated what should be done with those individuals. So we follow those procedures.
And of course, when we talk about land issues in the Gambia, we cannot ignore the infiltration of the estate agencies. How do these people have access to ownership? Are there any laws guiding that?
Yes, at the moment we are working to get a legislation for the real estate. We have got a draft from the Ministry of Justice, and then we are working on that to get them legislated. We are working on that. But then coming up to having the real estate owning a huge chunk of land, it comes back to the same thing I was talking about. People allow transactions to take at the local level without involving government, only for them to come at a time when things go wrong. Because in the beginning, these estate agents will go to a family and tell this family that we want to take your land, and then we will take it to put an estate, but we have to sign a memorandum of understanding, or we will just buy it from you, but we will pay you in this installment. Whatever format arrangement that they must have made with them, they go through that format and then they do that agreement. But they will not come to the government to verify whether that in fact that particular area that they are trying to work on. I will give an example of estate owners trying to establish estate within a TDA. That is a reserve already, leased. Then you want to come and then establish it, it's going to be a problem. You're going to have confrontation with the government. But the person who is going to suffer is the buyer. Because the buyer, but the families that own land, you have your land, you have right over that land, and the state allows you at some point to transact over that land. When you want to transact over that land, you have to know that you have to go to the right authorities to get documentation. But these estate agents will not even have those documents. Some of them will not have this land transferred in their name before they can transact in them. But the ministry is working to get this thing regulated. We have to have a law first in place, then we try to enforce that law.
So how does the ministry keep up when it comes to records? Are you people working on having a central information system to keep track of everything that is happening?
Yes, at the moment we have our filing system which has checks and balances, which we'll be looking at them. But then what you are talking about, we are working on a land information system, and then it starts with what we call cadastral mapping. We'll be doing a mapping, and then what we intend to do, if all goes well, is to have the whole country mapped out. Every inch of the land will be mapped out. It's not only mapped out, but information will be attached to this particular plot of land. Every plot, the owner will go down, deep down to track as way back as we can how the ownership changed hand on that particular property, and what is the land use of that area, and whether it is within a reserve area, a wetland, or whatever use it might be. We will have to document it such that people can easily, with the press of a button, will be able to know a particular land, the history of particular land in terms of ownership, and also importantly in terms of the land use, because that is very important. Sometimes you buy land, you go there, you don't want to live there, because at the time you are buying, you are living in abroad, they buy you land maybe in a swampy area. By the time you come back, you realize that this place is not habitable. But then this particular process will enable us to put an information, a land information system that will enable people to query and then know a particular property. What is the status in terms of the land use? What is the status in terms of the ownership? What is the status in terms of the value? And a lot of other things. We are working on that. Yeah.